A trial court judge once asked me if Jesus really meant what he said when he said, "Do not judge, and you shall not be judged." He said this gospel line gives him a heavy conscience because his profession is precisely to judge. And so he asked me, will I be judged by God on the day of reckoning for just doing my job? Well, today I have found the good answer to his question in the gospel that we have just read, especially the part where Jesus says, "Why do you not judge what is right?" I think what Jesus meant when he said, "Do not judge," was, do not judge wrongly, meaning do not misjudge. Remember, Jesus actually expects his disciples to be innocent as doves, but clever as serpents. He expects us to use our God-given faculties, namely, not just rational but also spiritual intelligence, which includes discernment. Why? Well, precisely because we can commit injustice by judging people and situations wrongly. And our misjudgments can have terrible consequences on people's lives. In my college philosophy course on epistemology, one of the philosophers we discussed was the great Jesuit Bernard Lonergan. Lonergan explains that the process of knowing involves a lot of experiencing, understanding, judging, and decision-making. The decision-making can be defective when a person has a flawed sense of judgment. And our judgment can go wrong when the understanding is very inadequate. And the understanding is compromised when we have very little or no experience on the matter. You know, Jesus sounds a little bit like the TV weather forecasters, Mang Tani or Kim Atienza, when he speaks about interpreting the appearance of the earth and the sky. He talks about actual experiences like seeing clouds rising in the west or feeling the wind blowing from the south. Parang, you know, the kind of news we hear about habagat. Yeah. He notes how we try to interpret these occurrences and their connection to potential changes in the weather and how these become our basis for judging whether or not it is going to be a rainy day or a hot day, and for deciding whether or not to bring along an umbrella or a raincoat. From developing knowledge about the weather, Jesus suddenly switches to knowledge about management of conflicts in our lives. And his point is that the dynamics involved are still the same: experiencing, understanding, judging, and decision-making. In fact, he proposes something which is becoming more and more common among modern-day judges, advising the petitioners and the respondents to come up with a kind of settlement of the issue among themselves. I know personally a female judge who counsels those who are involved in the litigation process before she actually calls them to appear in court for a trial, especially if they are related to one another by blood. She would usually tell them this: "We can proceed with this trial if you want, but I am warning you. I want you to know in advance that it can lead to an irreparable damage to your relationship in your family. You have the choice to settle things out among yourselves civilly, at the very least, or amicably, if possible." And he says, it works many times, and it saves her a lot of work too. She says, St. Paul, in our first reading, invokes the other values related to spiritual intelligence that are necessary for developing a good discernment. And among them, he includes humility, gentleness, patience, love, and the bond of peace. It does make a lot of difference when you see the others as people we are connected to in the one Spirit that we received and in the one body of Christ which we all belong to.